here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? Welcome to another episode of the 49ers Rush podcast. I'm your host, as always, John Chapman. And yes, this is a little bit earlier than normal, but here's the deal. We just got finished with some press conferences. We've got a whole bunch of new updates. We've got new signings. We've got people getting cut and waived. And good news, bad news, all in between. Plus, we are going to be going over roster projections for the offense, which I got to be honest with you. This is the hardest roster projection I've ever had since I've been doing this. It's hard. Not only is there just so much talent and depth to the 49ers team, where are you going to be weak at? Because with all of these injuries, the weird as hell, no preseason situation that we have going, it's weird. We're in a weird place right now. So we're going to battle through this. I think this is probably going to be my least accurate one yet, but I'm taking stances I believe on. And kind of the whole practice of predicting a roster, you got to step into the shoes, and you've got to make those tough decisions. And so even if I'm wrong on some of these, I think that it will give us, I think it's going to shed pretty good light on what they're having to go through right now. And whenever you see them making a lot of these necessary cuts currently, now already, 24 days before the season starts, it's because they've got to get more veteran guys that can step in and contribute early in a worst case scenario. So as always, thank you so much for joining us. I'm seeing the Countdown crew is live and active as always. I freaking love it. Really appreciate all the support, all the hashtag CCs. Love it. Yeah, AJ, I see you already, brother. We need depth at center. There's some rough ones. And so let's go ahead and just start right off the bat. Let's just jump into this. Ben Garland, he's going to be out for a few weeks with an ankle injury. Now, this is problematic because guess what? Western Richburg, not going to be healthy for the first part of the season either. So Kyle Shanahan led off with his press conference today right after practice and kind of everything that went on. He started talking about the center position. So let's jump in. Let's hear from Kyle on exactly how he sees this center position shaking out.
How's Brunskill coming along there?
I mean, we've had to mix a bunch of guys up in there. You know, we've lost, the center has been like our receivers. We've lost 3 centers so far, starting with Richburg and then Long retiring and then going to Garland yesterday. So we've had to move a number of guys there, trained a bunch of guys. Brunskill's done a little bit of it. I mean, goes in there and tries his best, just like the other guys. Brought in a new guy today, and Grasu. So today was his first day. So when you lose 3 guys that you plan on having, you're going to have to switch around a bunch of guys to figure it out.
And I'll tell you this, you could tell. Kyle Shanahan's usually a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. He's not happy today. Losing 3 centers. And the center is, here's the pecking order of the offensive line positions in this Kyle Shanahan zone scheme. Left and right tackle, they're equally valued. Center is a step behind those, then left and right guard. So this is the third most important position on the offensive line, and you've lost Richburg, who you weren't planning to have. He's never been healthy in his entire career. I wouldn't be shocked if he never takes a snap again for the 49ers, which is, it hurts. Ouch. He's got a lot more money on his contract too. Ben Garland, who's old and played very, very well, coming in for the injured Richburg, but you were counting on him to be your starter. Now he goes out. Spencer Long was the guy you got some work there. He retires. Now, one of the bold takes that we had earlier, the 49ers Rush podcast, was that Daniel Brunskill is going to be starting at center at some point this year. It might be week 1. I was thinking eventually, once Colton McKivitz was ready to move into right guard, you'd bump Brunskill over to center. But, if the season started today, Daniel Brunskill is your starting center. That is problematic. Now, I believe in Brunskill, but it's not ideal. You would like him to work into that a little bit better, but it's what it is, and we're going to get started. And here's the thing about it, and I think that this is important too. Ben Garland, if he's healthy at all and practices for 1 day, he's going to start. But what I think that this is going to solidify is you're going to move Tom Compton into that right guard spot, because what's going to happen now is Brunskill is going to be getting almost all the snaps at center. Compton and McKivitz are going to be fighting for that right guard spot. So I think week 1, it's going to be Brunskill at center, or he's going to be the backup offensive lineman for basically every position. Now, the press conference goes on, and Kyle Shanahan gets asked, who are you expecting to not be ready week 1? And there's a lot of guys on that list. Obviously Debo. We got Richburg, who we just talked about, Richie James, Julian Taylor. Where's Ronald Blair at? We haven't seen him. What does that look like? And here's how Kyle Shanahan answered, and he was just blunt about it. He did not mix his words whatsoever.
I don't remember all the names you just said, but I know Richburg's not coming back at that time, and I know Richie James isn't. The other guys, and I know Julian isn't. So I think that leaves 2 left. So the other guys we're holding out hope for.
And so you've got NFI and PUP, right? Those are NFI and PUP guys. Basically, for our sense and purposes, they're the same damn thing. It's basically how you got your injury, but the roster qualifications are the exact same. If you are on that NFI or PUP list, you miss the first 6 weeks of the season no matter what. You have to miss at least 6. Now, the good thing about being on that, though, that's 3 roster spots that you get to plug in backups that don't count towards your 53. Because if you're on the PUP or NFI at the initial roster break, whenever you break down from 80, which we're at now because of COVID, to 53. So essentially, if those 3 guys are on PUP or NFI, they don't count towards the roster. Now, so let's deal with each one of these kind of individually. Richburg, we just talked about. Richie James, he's wide receiver depth, but probably his most vital role is punt returner. Now, punt returner has been talked about a lot because you bring in guys like J.J. Nelson, Tavon Austin. You have Dante Pettis, who broke the record for most punt return touchdowns. And Kyle Shanahan was even asked this later in the press conference. I didn't grab the clip. It was a really long clip, but the idea is this. He said, yeah, Dante Pettis is getting work back there. But what's more important than explosive plays, and Kyle Shanahan even mentioned Dante Pettis broke the all-time college record for a reason. He's so explosive. But what's more important than that is catching the ball every single time. And for those of you that have been on this wonderful Dante Pettis hype train, sponsored by John Chapman, sorry about that. I was so happy when we traded up for him in the second round. Still, I love the kid. I'm rooting on him. But the problems that he has had, clutch moments, third downs, high-pressure situations, not coming down with the ball and not being reliable. Can you put somebody like that back there at punt return whenever they're going to have issues catching the ball in high-pressure situations? Yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of guys on this team that can return. DJ Reed, he was one of the punt returners, kickoff returners too. He's gone. He's done. So, yeah, you've got to figure something out. Trent Taylor would probably be the best at it as far as from a reliable standpoint, but he's going to be your starting wide receiver week 1. Do you want to put your starting wide receiver back there? So there are some concerns there, but back to the clip, he didn't mention Debo and Blair. And he goes on to say later on in this press conference that he is hopeful they will return week 1. I don't think either one will, but if either one did, that'd be great. But that does tell us Debo is not currently. Things can change, as we know with foot injuries. Look at Trey Taylor last year, right? Ouch, that hurts. I'm sorry I laughed. I laughed at myself. The pain subsides. But whenever you talk about Debo and Blair, this means they will count against the 53, but they might just miss a few weeks. I'm sticking to my Debo Samuel timeline. I think his first start will be week 4 against the Eagles. I think Ronald Blair comes back sooner. I could see Ronald Blair weeks 1, 2, or 3. Wouldn't be shocked with any of those. And you just put him back in spot duty, give yourself a little bit more D-line depth. Now, we stay with these injuries, and they are aplenty. K'Wan Williams, he's got a calf issue. Now, the good thing is, they did an MRI, they did some testing on it. It's only a grade 1 calf strain. And you've got to be careful, because if you don't let it heal, it shows right back up in a hurry. So he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Now, the problem is this. Kyle Shanahan was asked who's getting snaps there, what's that look like, and all that stuff. First off, Jamar Taylor has been getting snaps at the nickel role with the first teamers. But Kyle Shanahan kind of took a different turn, one that he doesn't usually do. He almost broke the fourth wall, if you will, acting terms, right? He says, I've been really honest with you guys because we've had preseason games in the past and everybody's going to see it anyway. We don't have those anymore. So I hate to tell you this, but I'm not going to be as open because we don't want to give stuff away that we don't have to. And, they brought in a whole bunch of signings, which we're going to talk about in a second. There are going to be changes in personnel on the back part of this defense. 100%. You bring in, I'll jump into the signings now. You signed Jonathan Cyprian, strong safety, if you remember, out of Central Florida back in the day. Then you bring in Evan Foster from Syracuse, signed him to a 3-year deal, which is shocking. They want him to be around for a while. They're going to be moving. Now, there's lots of options here at nickel. And, I put this poll out on Twitter just to kind of see what other people were thinking, because there's a lot of options that you can do at the corner position. And so here was the question I asked. Who should go in at nickel if K'Wan Williams is out? Now, we've had almost 500 votes in just a couple of hours. Jamar Taylor, who's getting those reps, he has the least amount of votes. The 49ers fans don't want that. He's just under 15%. Personally, if I was making the move, I would move Jimmy Ward to nickel, and then I would put Tarvarius Moore back at free safety. That would be my ideal. That is also the highest votes. I can tell you guys listen to the podcast. I appreciate that, with 36% of the vote. Now, also, you could move Emmanuel Mosley to slot nickel corner, because he played that. If you remember when he first got activated, that's where he was getting most of his snaps. So you would move Mosley from right corner to nickel, and then you'd plug in Akello or Jason Verrett at the other outside corner spot. Now, I've been talking with, a huge friend of the show, love Eric Crocker. I'm sure most of you guys all know who he is. We've been messaging back and forth, and he even said he thinks that Marcel Harris should go in front of Tarvarius Moore. So what you would do is you move Jimmy Ward to nickel, and then you'd put Marcel Harris and Jaquaski Tart back there as your safeties. There's a lot of options. Personally, I'm a big Tarvarius Moore because I love turnovers, but Marcel Harris is growing on me. I've gone back and watched a lot of his film. He had those huge negative plays early, but his aggressiveness is unparalleled on this team. So take that for what you want. They've got to do something there, or maybe you just stay in base. Maybe you just stay in a 4-3. This allows you to keep Dre Greenlaw on the field, and you almost put Quan Alexander out there as your nickel back. There's some options. No clue how they're going to do this, and we're not going to know. Again, back to the Kyle Shanahan thing. We're going to find out week 1. And you're going up against a team that likes to do 4 wide receiver formations more than anybody else in the NFL, and 10 personnel, meaning 1 running back, no fullback, no tight ends. And that's the Arizona Cardinals. We don't know. That's just kind of the way that it is. And so pretty excited, I guess, is the right way to talk about this. But, there is one more thing that Kyle Shanahan brought up that we talk about a lot, and that's Tevin Coleman. So let's allow this to come from the horse's mouth itself. Obviously, I'm Team Raheem Mostert. I'm not the biggest Tevin Coleman fan, and I felt like Kyle Shanahan was subtweeting me here, even though I know he doesn't know I exist. But that's okay. Let's listen to him and his justification for why Tevin Coleman gets the amount of workload that he gets.
Season when Tevin Coleman just remained in the starting lineup, did you ever give it much thought to putting Raheem Mostert in there, just because he was at a certain point there he became a more productive back, and just on top of that, what is it that you like so much about Tevin that fits what you want to do?
I like good running backs, and I consider Tevin a good running back. We know Raheem took over the carries last year and really took off halfway through the year. And I know it's a big deal to who's labeled the starter, who's out there. And we kept going with Tevin in that. Raheem ended up getting the bulk of the carries and stuff. So I think overall he was treated more like the starter as the year went. But the thing with us in that is, who does it help more? Is it a big deal to someone? Is it not? That was kind of the way Raheem had always come off the bench a little bit, and I thought it was kind of comfortable for him to do that. They have a little bit different style runs. We keep working both of them in. We try to get a third guy in there too, and we got a number of backs this year who can get in that mix. But I've always liked Tevin's physicality. He's got the speed that we love, like pretty much all of our backs do. But he's never going to turn anything down, and he's going to run through people and try to get those hard yards. And when people hit Tevin, there's a little bit different of a feel to it. And I like to watch how those linebackers react when they get up after they tackle him, as opposed to how they react after they tackle some other guys. And the more you can do that and mix it up with certain guys, I think it does have effect on the linebackers throughout the game.
And, it makes sense. And it's funny, we talk about Kyle Shanahan's loyalty, hashtag relationship goals. It's huge. And if you've played with him at another team and you follow him to a new location, he'll go to bat for you over and over again. However, please God, in the back of my head, I just have this voice screaming. Raheem Mostert got 0 carries in the first quarter of the Super Bowl. Raheem Mostert got 0 carries in the first quarter, just screaming. And it's just like, shut the hell up. Let's move on. But it's screaming back here. Tevin Coleman does do a lot of things, which Kyle just alluded to. One, the size is huge. The way that he runs, he is a guy with speed, but that's not how he wins. He runs through. He doesn't try to make people miss. But pass protection, that's one thing he didn't bring up. I think that's the area that he is way above. Outside of Jerick McKinnon, I think Jerick McKinnon is one of the best pass blocking backs in the NFL. Now, another positive note that I haven't mentioned yet, Eric Armstead is back. He practiced in full for the first time in training camp. He had the back tightness or soreness, as it has been labeled throughout the media. So he's back. So that's great news. At least we get something. Now, as far as cuts and signings, we've got a lot of new 49ers. And it does seem the overall theme of this is get more veteran presence that can step in and participate now. Because every team is struggling with these very few practices, no preseason games, whatever. This is not the offseason or the training camp to develop talent for the future. It's not. Everybody is basically in win now mode, and you've got to get people that can contribute right now. So because of that, the 49ers have gone on a signing just freaking rampage, and they are bringing in everybody. We saw with, Tavon Austin, J.J. Nelson. They go get another wide receiver. Jalen Hurd has been moved to IR. His ACL is what it is. RIP, man. Love that guy. Nobody likes him more than me. I hope that eventually he gets his stuff together. Maybe it'd be like a Jerick McKinnon. Missed 2 years already in his career. Hopefully he can get back and get healthy. We'll see what happens. But they go sign another wide receiver, Jerron Brown, who was he's a bigger, taller wide receiver. Was with Seattle for a while, kind of bounced around the league. Don't really expect much from him besides an extra body. He'll basically be Kendrick Bourne's backup, just in case something goes wrong. They go get another center. Amazing name, Hronis Grasu, which is just straight fire name. He's got to be working it at the center position. Jonathan Cyprien that we talked about, and Evan Foster. Now, to make room for those guys, you moved Jordan Hurd to IR, and then they cut 2 promising undrafted free agents that I really liked, and I think a lot of fans liked. DeMarcus Acey, cornerback, and Jonas Griffin, friend of the show who was on the show right after he signed. I think both of these guys are going to be practice squad candidates. I really, really do. And so the practice squad is going to be twofold this year. And as we go in through our roster breakdowns, I think it's going to make a little bit of sense. You get 16. 10 have to follow the traditional practice squad requirements where you have less than 2 accrued seasons to qualify, and 6 can be veterans, okay? So I think what the 49ers are going to do is they're going to treat about half of the squad as developmental guys that you don't see them helping this year, developing. Guys like DeMarcus Acey and Jonas Griffin. No way they're going to be able to compete on this roster that is stacked with outside corners and linebackers. They're just not. So you cut them now. They're going to clear waivers because they're not going to have time to step in, and help somewhere else. So these guys clear waivers. You put a handful of these guys that you've seen that can develop but are going to need time just on your practice squad. High ceiling types of guys like these guys that are super raw. The other ones will be veterans that you can call up because remember, another addition to the new CBA, you can call 2 players up from your practice squad 30 minutes before kickoff. So, I mean, let's say you need more wide receiver depth. You could put Tavon Austin and J.J. Nelson on the practice squad this year despite them being veterans. And you call them up for game day and put them right back down. And you can do that nonstop every single week with no penalties. Now, a couple other practice notes from Matt Barrows that I thought was really, really good. He's incredible, by the way. I'm sure you guys all know he writes for The Athletic. He did talk about Dante Pettis and how the last practice, he went 5 for 5 in 11 on 11 drills, catching all 5 targets, and he's getting punt return work. He's just got to prove that he can be relied upon and that he can be trusted. The routes are amazing. Explosiveness is amazing. Got to catch the ball, whether that's a punt or in the receiving game, got to catch the ball. It's step one. The corner opposite Sherman is rotating. It does seem like they are trying to have a natural competition there. Jason Verrett got first snaps there. Next was Witherspoon. Next was Mosley. They're just rotating day by day. Obviously, Mosley is who everybody wants to win that job, but we'll have to see. Solomon Thomas gained 10 pounds, so he's trying to bulk up to play a little bit more inside like that. And Contavious Street, he's looking much, much better. If you remember this time last year, he was fighting over just getting healthy. There's two different types of off seasons. There's the off seasons where you're spending time rehabbing, getting healthy so you can practice. And then there's the off season where you're not rehabbing and you can add muscle, add size, add strength, add speed. And it seems like that has really done him well. And I think you could say that about a lot of the 49ers. You talk about Nick Bosa. You talk about, guys coming off of those injuries that are ready to go. And I think that's what we see here. Again, even brought up Mike McGlinchey in the press conference and how he was dealing with some stuff last year. But now he looks and is playing way better than any point last year. Looking for McGlinchey to have a very strong third season. Now let's jump into the second portion of our podcast, which I'm excited about. This is hard, man, and I'm looking at it now. I started this a week ago, and I've changed it way too many damn times. It's rough. It's like a March Madness bracket, because if you get one position wrong, it affects another position, and where do you take this from? So the roster requirements are the same. Really not any different than the past. Hasn't been affected by the CBA. You get 53. Everybody else has to clear waivers, then you can add to your practice squad, things like that. So I'm going to give you the numbers that they kept last year for 2019 for each position. We're just going to do offense today. We'll do defense next episode or 2 episodes from now. Maybe something crazy comes out and we need to do a whole episode on something. But offensively, here's the deal. Let's start at the quarterback position. Last year they kept 3. And a lot of criticism. Why keep 3 quarterbacks? CJ Beathard was inactive every single week. Well, guess what? This is the new trend with COVID. Because what if both your quarterbacks get sick? Now you're screwed. You got people like Bruce Arians talking about possibly keeping 3 quarterbacks, and the third quarterback just stays in isolation, is not around the team. So that if everybody does get sick and bad things happen, you bring in your emergency quarterback while your other 2 quarterbacks are out and kind of move forward there. Kyle Shanahan's keeping all 3 quarterbacks this year, period. That's all there is to it. Jimmy G, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard. Every single team in the NFL, I think, is going to keep 3 this year. Maybe 1 or 2. The old school guys will keep just 2, but they're keeping all 3. That's all. That's all there is to it. Now, running backs, last year they kept 4 initially, and then they jumped it up to 5. I think they keep 4. And, I went through the running back position, and initially I had them keeping 5, wanted to give them 6. There's just so many guys there. The problem is, if you do keep 5 running backs, that's costing you a wide receiver, offensive lineman, or a secondary guy. And again, we go back to Kyle Shanahan's thing. You can bump somebody up 30 minutes before kickoff. So because of the love of Kyle Shanahan and undrafted free agents, I only have them keeping 4. And I'm counting Juice in this, right? He counts as a running back. Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon, Tevin Coleman, and Kyle Juszczyk. Now, that's the initial 53. Now, what does that look like for who's not making it in practice squad? Okay. Now, practice squad, I've got, again, you can put Jeff Wilson on there. He can go back to the practice squad under the terminology of this year. JaMycal Hasty, I think him and Jeff Wilson are neck and neck. And Josh Hockett, I have going to the practice squad as well. They really, really like this kid, fullback, big kid. Now, out. I do have Salvon Ahmed not making it. However, if, let's say they put Jeff Wilson on the active roster. Let's say they do keep 5. Jeff Wilson's a hell of a player. I'm not trying to slight him in the least. He would start for he should get playing time, period. He's proven that he can play in the system. But let's just say hypothetically, you waive Jeff Wilson and somebody picks him up. Well, now that means you got JaMycal Hasty and Salvon Ahmed. You're not really missing out on a lot. I think that the coaching staff would like JaMycal Hasty to take a step up. He's shown wonderful things so far in training camp and made a lot of big plays because he offers the receiving threat and fits the outside zone much more than Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson's a little bit more of a power back, in a power scheme, but he's made it work because his receiving capabilities are decent to say the least. This is a rough one. Now, I'm still planting my flag here. At some point, JaMycal Hasty's making this roster. It just takes one. It takes one guy. One guy goes down. One guy's not healthy. One guy gets suspended. One guy gets COVID. Once he gets called up, you're not going to get rid of him. Trust me, JaMycal Hasty's going to be around for a while. 49ers fans are going to love this guy. So that's my 4. Wide receivers. Okay, last year they kept 7. This year I have them keeping 6. Now here's why. Kyle Shanahan, what he wants to do is mix and match wide receivers all day. But as trust goes, and whatever, he's not feeling very confident in one, he moves you to the side and you're not playing. Dante Pettis, right? Healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. Didn't even get called up. So what I think they're going to do is, and you're seeing all of them bring in all these veteran guys that nobody else wanted that have experience. I think that they're going to waive all those guys and they're going to load up the practice squad with at least 2 veterans at the wide receiver position and allow that position just to be a washing machine where you're just moving guys in and out. If it doesn't work, you move another guy in and it doesn't count. Doesn't count against the cap. It's cheap, all those things. So here's the guys I have. 1, Debo's going to count as one of these 6. Even if he doesn't play week 1, which I don't think he will. But you don't want to put him on the PUP, or he'd be the NFI. He got injured in Nashville at a non-football event, even though he was playing football. But Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, Trent Taylor. Those guys are absolute locks. No way in hell they do not make it. I do have Dante Pettis making the roster. Again, he has had some issues, but he's not a bad backup guy that you can kind of work in there. And then I got Juwan Jennings. I got him making it. I really, really do. I think once Jalen Hurd went down, he has so much more value long-term than all the guys they're bringing in. Now, here's what's important. I do not think that Tavon Austin, J.J. Nelson, any of the guys that Jerron Brown, I think that at least 2 of them are being brought back. I really do. At practice squad guys. And I think they'll be called up week 1 as long as Debo's out. But here's why you don't keep them on your active roster. You've got 3 veterans that signed 3 minimum deals that teams could have signed all offseason and nobody else wanted. We got 3 of them. We've been hit with injuries at the wide receiver position more than anybody else. So you got 3. All of them kind of do similar things. Yeah, Tavon Austin's a little bit more shiftier, but J.J. Nelson's the outside speed guy. You got Jerron Brown, who's kind of the bigger slot, whatever guy. Let's say you waive all 3 and 2 of them get picked up. Guess what? You're just fine. You keep the 3rd one on your practice squad and you call him up for game day as long as Debo's out. Just fine. Just fine. Let's say all 3 of them get claimed, which 100% will not happen. You've got Chris Thompson that you could put in there, right? There are guys that you can move in there that are familiar with the president. There's Sean Point Dexter. These guys are there. So I think that they're going to keep fewer wide receivers, which we've seen Kyle Shanahan kind of go towards, because you can call these guys up from the practice squad and just have them there. You don't want J.J. Nelson getting snaps. You don't want Tavon Austin getting snaps. They are backup plans, safety nets, just in case you go into a game. Debo's not playing week 1. Let's just assume that. So you've got Brandon Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne as your wide receivers in 2 sets. Trent Taylor in your 3 wide receiver sets. 49ers aren't doing 4 wide receiver sets. So if you have one guy go down, you're still okay. You put Pettis in there. You run a whole bunch of 2 tight end sets or 21 personnel with 2 backs. You're fine. You can cover that up. But then you got 2 wide receivers down. Now you put in one of those veterans that you called up from the practice squad. I think they're going to be okay. So I think 1 fewer spot at wide receiver is going to give you some flexibility on the back end on the defensive side where numbers are crazy shallow. Talking about nose tackle with DJ Jones down. Talking about nickel corner. That's a mess right now. So you need extra volume for those spots. Now, tight end, they kept 4 last year. I think they're going to keep 4 again. You could even argue they might keep 5, but I just don't see it. Once they signed Jordan Reed, they got the spot that they were missing in that second big receiving threat option, even if he's not that healthy, which he still has not practiced fully. He is doing conditioning on the side, so he's fully cleared, but they're just slowly bringing him back because he doesn't have to learn the whole playbook. He doesn't. He's got to learn the receiving end of the playbook. But Kittle, obviously, Charlie Warner, Jordan Reed, and Ross Dwelly, who is still getting work with the first team. Ross Dwelly's not going anywhere. I really don't think that there's an opportunity for that. One, he does so much on special teams. He can back up the fullback spot. He can back up both tight end spots. Dude's all over the place, and he's proven that he is a valuable member of this team. He spent a whole year on the practice squad, and they have groomed him to kind of be that third tight end. Now, maybe if Charlie Warner can prove that he is as an exceptional blocker as everybody has thought, and he can pick up the playbook, maybe you can waive him and just go with 3. But I doubt you're going to be able to keep Ross Dwelly on the practice squad. I think if you waived him, there's so much good film on him, and everybody trying to replicate this outside zone process, I think he's going to get claimed. I really, really do. So now Daniel Helm, Chase Harrell, those are guys, Daniel Helm's already been cut, but I would not be shocked if he gets brought back. Kyle Shanahan's always had a move tight end / fullback on his practice squad. One of those guys, if not both, I think will be brought back with the 16-man practice squad. All right, let's go to offense. Before we get to our questions and answers, I'm seeing a handful of these on Twitter and on Periscope. Appreciate the questions. Always tag me. I do these shows live. The last episode, as I was talking, Jalen Hurd got hurt. And people were throwing it up in the comments, but there's a lot of comments, and I appreciate that. I want more comments. But if you tag me at John Chapman, it highlights that. So whenever I scroll through, I'm reading these questions unseen, man. This is a live show, and I don't have a producer. Maybe I need to get my kids in here and be producers, figure something out. But that is what it is. So if you have a question, please just tag me, and we'll get to it for sure. Now, offensive line. This is hard as hell, man. You could keep 12 guys and not have enough, to be honest with you. And you have to call at least one offensive lineman up from the practice squad to get to that 55 number every single week. So last year they kept 8 offensive linemen. I think that's the magic number this year is 8 too. Now the center with what's going on with Ben Garland, that could change everything. Okay. So I tried to break this up into tackles and interior offensive linemen, but it's hard to do because the positionless football that Kyle Shanahan has designed. Daniel Brunskill is the epitome of this. He's center, guard, tackle. He does it all. So now the tackles, I think there's 3 true tackles. Trent Williams, who's having a great camp, by the way, dominated Bosa the last 2 days of padded practice, which if you could dominate Nick Bosa, you're elite. I don't care. If you can dominate Nick Bosa, you are elite. And this is great news for the 49ers fans. Mike McGlinchey talked about him earlier. Kyle Shanahan said he's having a great camp, his best camp so far. And Justin School. Sean Coleman was going to compete for that swing tackle job, but he has opted out. Justin School, he's got it. It's going to be his. Interior offensive lineman, this is where it gets weird. Okay. Now, the projected starters I have currently, Laken Tomlinson at left guard. You've got Daniel Brunskill at center if Garland can't go, and Ton Compton at right guard. Now, I do have both Ben Garland. I don't think that he's going to be an option for PUP. And, of course, Colton McKivitz, the rookie that they traded Daniel Brunskill for. So that's what I have them keeping. Now, let's just say Ben Garland can't go week 1. Now you've got to change some things because you've got to bring somebody up in like Hronis Grasu as a backup center, because I don't think that there's anybody else. Maybe Colton McKivitz can get center snaps, but he hasn't been working that. You've got to have another center there. Tom Compton, perhaps he could, but that's just kind of where it is. Now, guys that I don't have making it, Kofi, Amichia, Jared Jones-Smith, I don't think that he's going to make it either. Western Richburg's going to be on the PUP. And then practice squad, William Sweet, Jake Brendel, and Hronis Grasu. If Ben Garland can at least play, then I think Grasu gets waived and put on practice squad and just gets called up. But if he can't, Grasu's making this roster currently, unless they add somebody, unless they trade for somebody. I don't know. Maybe you could work a deal to trade like a Solomon Thomas for a decent center. I doubt it, but nobody wants that contract, especially with next year looking the way it is. So that's our offensive breakdown. That's kind of where we're at. We'll do the defensive one next time. I already have the answers here, but I want to give its due time and diligence to talk through that stuff. So let's go to a couple questions. Let's go through YouTube real quick from Daddy Miller. He asked, any word on undrafted free agents, any of them making some noise? Yeah, the number one for sure is rookie running back, undrafted, JaMychal Hasty from Baylor. He's the guy. He is definitely the guy. Now, outside of that, DeMarcus Hasty was a guy that was making a lot of noise, and unfortunately, that's not looking very promising currently. So really haven't heard much from a lot of undrafted guys, but this isn't the year for him because, one, way less contact taking place, way less team than what you're used to having. There's not a lot of team going on because you had to do the slow compliance period. And here we are 24 days away from the season starting. No scrimmaging, no inter-squad scrimmaging, no preseason. This is the worst year ever. And if you've been watching Hard Knocks, they've even discussed that. I hate to hear that. I love undrafted free agents and following that story. But that's kind of what it is. Now, let's see here. How good do you think Kinlaw is going to be on this line? That's by Niner by nature. He's going to be great. And just to explain why this front office loves Kinlaw so much, guess what? DJ Jones goes down in the middle of practice. Guess who's the starting nose guard? Yeah, it's Javon Kinlaw at 330 pounds. You move that bad boy in, he just plays right over the center, which he did a lot in South Carolina. This guy he's starting. You cannot make this kid not start somewhere. And he's better than DJ Jones. I'm not trying to slight DJ Jones. I think DJ Jones is great. Day one, he would be a better nose than DJ Jones. 3 technique is obviously more valuable. I think that the thing is going to be this. A run game, Javon Kinlaw is going to be a great starter day one. There's no question. The size, the physicality, the motor, the bull rush, the playing behind his pads, it's how you design him. The body's just huge. The strength is huge. Pass rush, that's going to be a slow develop. Now, he'll be able to bull rush over a handful of guards in this league, but you can't do that consistently in the NFL. You have to learn some counter moves, which you didn't really see in his college tape. So I think that Javon Kinlaw is going to be great right off the bat, but to move into kind of an all-pro type player like Buckner was, you got to have a complete game and a complete skill set. And he's just working with like 2 tools right now. He's going to need 5 or 6, but you've got to start with the bull rush. You got to start with power, start with the run game, and then I think all those things move on. All right, here we go. Another question we got. Let's see here. Yeah, I love this. Barack O'Niner. You hear how intense they were practicing today? Yes. Lots of scuffles, lots of trash talk. Luckily, no punches were thrown. But, you know, it's funny. I've worked for coaching staffs that love inter-squad fights, and I've worked with coaches that hate it. You love the energy. You love the competitiveness. You love all of that. But you never want to do anything that's going to hurt your team. Okay? And Kyle Shanahan said the same thing. Get up there, get excited, you know, you got to do what you got to do. But you don't hurt yourself throwing punches against a helmet like an idiot, and you don't get a penalty because that hurts your team. So I love the energy, but you don't want to cost anybody anything. From Snipe Randoms, what's the situation on Hurd? He's done for the year. They moved him to IR. He is now, his season's completely done with the 49ers. Now, the only way Hurd can play this year is if the Niners cut him, somebody else picks him up, then he could play. So, do I think AB is a possibility? Hell no. AB and Des Bryant, I don't want anywhere around my team regardless. Here's the deal, and this is true for both Antonio Bryant and Des Bryant. If you've been kicked off of 3 teams, I don't want you anymore. Just don't. Just don't. Those are just not people that I want. Very cancerous attitudes, and they cause problems for whichever organization they are at. Just not what I want to be around. Don't want it. It's not worth it. And plus, 49ers need wide receiver help early in the year while Debo's out. Antonio Brown suspended at least, I think it's 6 or 8 games. I don't remember. Maybe it's 10 games. But just no. Just no. Just no. Just no. Especially with such a young wide receiver core, I wouldn't want to touch it. Just no. Like, I want to play that Tracy gif from 30 Rock where he's just like, no. But anyway, Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode today, just getting you caught up on all things 49ers. We've got a lot of stuff coming for you guys. The Patreon, if you haven't joined us yet, just put a Jerick McKinnon breakdown up on there. So if you want to see that, just head over to patreon.com, type in 49ers Rush Podcast. Check us out there. Hit subscribe, $8 a month. As soon as the season starts, man, we're doing 4 episodes a week, doing two full offensive, defensive breakdowns, film-wise, going through the entire game tape, coach's film, over there on Patreon. So if you want to support the podcast, all the money that is raised from there goes back to the podcast. We're currently working on Quest for 6 episode 2 as well. All those interviews are done. We're just in post-production, putting clips together. So stay tuned for that. But as always, guys, love y'all. Really do appreciate all the support and all the positivity that you guys have brought to the podcast. Countdown crew, love you guys. Y'all are incredible. And until next time, guys, as always, stay strong, faithful.